Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm just going to give it another minute or so because I'm going to explain everything about the simulation today. So I want to make sure as many people can hear about it as possible. Cool. Everybody's here. That's awesome. Well, welcome everybody. You all should have received an email from me yesterday explaining about your roles in the game and telling you your assigned role. So today what I'm going to do is go over all the specifics, let you all ask all your questions. And then this week, and this is a little atypical, not everyone who runs one of these games does this. A lot of people will just sort of like throw students into it. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I've actually had that done to me because when you learn to do these, you go to the conference and as a professor, you play a role in 2 different games, which is kind of fun actually. I got to play someone who didn't think women should be allowed to like be in science, so that was funny because obviously that's not me at all. But they'll just like throw you in without much preparation, and I don't think that's fair. I don't think that that does you justice to what you can bring to these characters. So this week is all about you all getting ready for the game, and then we'll do 2 days of the reaction simulation next week. Next Friday will be a work day where we can kind of like regroup. I'll be available for questions, comments, concerns. Or you can start Thanksgiving break early. I didn't say that. If Dr. Schaus asked, I didn't say that. And then when we come back, we'll have a full week plus an extra day. When I've done this before, I've only really had 3 days. And so we've had to essentially just do 1 year of the convention. And my hope is that we can at least do 2 of the years and not have to jam everything into the same convention. And again, that will make more sense as we go through things and you all learn more about this process. So just to give you a little bit more of a background. So this is a whole series of these games called Reacting to the Past. And they obviously started with history, but now they've gone to a whole bunch of different fields. So, you know, there are ones about science now. There are certainly ones about English. You know, there are ones that can be used for French, for example. And they're always trying to expand. This one, if you've had a chance to look through the game manual, you will realize it is a work in progress. It is one guy who's writing it, and I think I might be the only other person who has used it. But it is enough that we can make this work. It's just not fancy and bound and all that good stuff. But we have everything we need. So I'm going to start. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I saw the email that you sent yesterday come through on my phone, but now it has disappeared. I don't know. Like I saw the notification, but when I went to actually look at the email, it was gone.
Okay, I will resend it right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know, magically disappearing email. I looked everywhere. I was like, where did it go? I swear I saw it.
This is bizarre because it also disappeared from my inbox. So the internet ate it. Cool, cool. Hang on just a sec and let me, did anyone else have that problem while I'm doing this? And I'll make sure I resend your stuff too. Just Debbie and I. Cool. All right. That's fine. We can handle all this now. Let me just go to my sent emails. Oh, there it is. For some reason, it didn't show up. All right, so I can just forward this to you, and that should hopefully work. Helps if I put your email in. All right, so it should be on the way. That's good. And if anyone else has that problem, please let me know, because the roll sheets that I sent to you individually, as I send the email, no one else has those but me, because you have some stuff in there that you might need to like keep secret from other people. So
I was gonna ask you if you were gonna tell us like what information like we can share from the roll sheet, because I know some of it might be pertinent to the game, you know?
yeah. So your roll sheet will tell you specifically if you need to keep something quiet. So like there is a character, for example, who like is in disguise at one point, for example. And there are things that like you need to like not tell other people this. But in the most case, especially once we get you into your factions, so that's what I'm going to do on Wednesday, is I'm going to make groups for your factions and have you go into breakout rooms so you can talk to like all the other cognitivists or all the other independents. You can share pretty much everything with them. You just might not want to share it with like, you know, the people who are on the opposite side of you, things like that. But yeah, really good question. Yeah, your sheet will be really specific if there's something you should keep in. And if it's not, then you can share whatever you feel like sharing with other people. Carly, I see that. I bet you that was with Dr. Hooker, because Dr. Hooker is actually the one who got me hooked on this. She's the one who helped me get to the conference to do this as well. So that was actually really fun. It was me, Dr. Hooker, Dr. Casey, and Dr. Slipka. So it was just like a fun few days together in New York. Yeah, and I know, I think when I did my individual meetings with people, other people have said that they've done similar ones before. Like someone had done the cholera one, which is the first one I ever did. I went to a conference and they had us play characters like really briefly. So yeah, there's a lot of fun ones of these, again, in different stages. I think there's only like 8 published officially, but then all the rest are, there's like a database for people who've been to the conferences, so you can get that. Exactly. Yep. So from here on out, we're not learning any new information. We're not going to be doing a final exam. I mean, you're learning new information from each other and from doing this project, but I'm not going to be lecturing besides today, kind of leading you through everything. But yeah, so like the exam time is usually sort of spillover to finish whatever we need to finish, basically. So we probably won't use our whole exam period. I think we typically need like an hour of it to wrap up. But again, since we have more time this year, we might not even need that. So we'll see. But yes. Okay, sweet. I'm glad that people are excited. I recognize on your surveys, a lot of you said you're really nervous about this. That's okay. That's perfectly normal and natural. And I know that I assigned your roles really kind of based off that. So like if I gave you sort of a villain role, it wasn't because I thought you were a horrible person. It was because you were the person who said you were most comfortable doing that, basically. So those 2 people got the villain roles. Yeah, and then sometimes it kind of ends up random, basically. I'm like, okay, I feel like that person would be a good fit. People who said they were comfortable doing leadership roles, you know, got the roles where they're going to be like presidents and whatnot. So yeah. Yes, yeah, there's no final, no cumulative final or anything. So the last exam you turned in is your last exam, and then you just have a series of small papers for this project, and then your speeches that you give. So let me screen share here, and I'll show you where to find everything you need for the game first. And then we'll go through, not, I'm not going to read you the rule book. You can do that yourself, but just to sort of show you what resources are there for you. Hang on just a sec. Let me get in. So that Blackboard showing, I think technically, if I show you my email, it could be a FERPA violation. So I'm going to try not to do that. Alrighty, so I'm in Blackboard in the student view. And if you go down near the end, there's a whole section called Defining the Mind. And that is all about the simulation. So I'm just going to make sure the chat is open in case anyone needs to ask anything while I'm in this view. And so the first thing you have due is this Friday. You have an abstract for the speech you're going to give at the convention to the program committee and to me, and I'll explain all that as we go through. And each of you will be sort of charged in your character role to give a different type of speech. So some of you are supposed to be on like a panel or a symposium together. Some of you have proposals you need to put forth. Some of you might be presenting research you did. We don't have enough people to add them in, but some of the characters in this are like Milgram and Zimbardo, and they would present about their studies, right? But I think there are a couple people to present about studies here too, but just not the big exciting ones. And you can give more than one speech. And in fact, several of you probably will want to. So when you turn in your abstracts, you just let me know which one you want graded. So just tell me which one you wrote best. And an abstract, if you're not familiar, is just a small summary, sort of like a preview of what you'll say in your speech. But you don't want to, in the past, people have like turned in their whole speech. You don't want to do that. It's probably 3 to 4 sentences max. And just give us a hint of what you're going to talk about so that other people can read that over and prepare. So in the past, what the program committee has done is taken those abstracts and made a Google Doc. That's sort of our convention agenda based on those. And then starting Monday before class, so a week from today, so you have a whole week to work on this, you're going to turn in a brief 2 to 3 page summary about your character and their opinions and what your strategy is going to be for the game, how that fits with the other people you'll talk to throughout the week. And then at the end of the simulation, I believe this is our exam day, you will turn in a summary and essentially, what was it like, referencing the materials you used. And on that last exam day, what we'll do is we'll also go over what really happened. And so then you can kind of think about what happened in the convention and our simulation and how did that match with real life. So you do have access to here a list of everybody's roles. You do have access to a list of who's on what committee. There is a brief document here that's just how to do these types of games. As it says here, the big things you want to review are your roll sheets, which I'm sure you've all already looked at already, and then the game book, which I'm going to skim over with you today, but then you'll probably want to like pay more attention to things as well. And so, you're going to do some library research. The nice thing with our library now is that you're able to do most of that remotely, right? So like if we're looking for journal articles, we can do that all remotely. There's a lot of ebooks. Certainly the library's open if you need to go in person, but you probably don't have to, is what I'm saying. So I am known as the Game Master, which is sort of a funny title. I feel like I'm playing D&D or something. And so I will be sitting on chat the whole time. And so my way of passing you a note might be to private chat you and be like, hey, you should say something about XYZ. Or are you going to stand for that, right? And then I might have some stuff in between. It's like, okay, this is what happened. Obviously, this one is not about war or anything, so there's not going to be anything that dramatic, but there is some background like in between stuff that I might give you. I also might have to like redirect, but I've never had to do that yet, so I doubt it. There will be a president, and then we'll elect subsequent presidents, and they will be in charge of actually like running the meeting. And what that means is you just introduce people in the order of the agenda, essentially. And so immerse yourself in the game. So what I'm going to ask us to do starting next Monday is have you all rename yourselves on Zoom with your character names so that you can interact with each other that way. And then some people get really into it and dress up. Less important since our cameras are not on, but I have had people like wear suits to do this and whatnot. When I was playing a guy, I wore shirts that I have that kind of look like a tie. And then I played like the head of a French salon, and I like wore my hair up and wore long skirts. I wasn't in like full costume, but like sort of suggesting it. So that's kind of fun. So, you know, again, you're going to be reading stuff, you're going to be researching stuff, you're going to be giving these speeches, and this is like a really supportive environment. Know that everybody else is nervous too. No one's looking to like make fun of you if your speech is not great. Also, the great thing is we're on Zoom, so you're really just by yourself, not in front of people, right? So hopefully that'll help some of you that have a little bit of social anxiety. And then I like the fourth point here where it just talks about how like this builds a lot of the skills that like Fortune 500 companies are looking for. So rock on. I'm trying to think if there's anything else you need to see here. It's just, I have the game book in chapters just because they're so big, but then the whole game book is available as well. So again, everything you need is here. But let me stop this share and share the game book, and we'll go over that next. And actually real quick, you know what, I'll just do this. I can just share this entire screen, and then whatever I pull up on it, you all will be able to see. So, so we are going to go over the game book, but the next thing I want to do is show you a couple of things I created and put on Blackboard yesterday. So one is your assignments. So this is posted on Blackboard. Hopefully you all can see it now that I moved it to this screen. Can everybody see it? Hopefully, yes. Should be.
Yes.
Sweet, thank you. Oh yeah. So this is a list of who's who, because you'll need to know this information as you, because there will be, you know, like in your role sheet, it might tell you like work with this person to do this. As you can see, there is a mix of genders. There's a mix of races as well. Some of the people that we read about at the beginning of the semester are represented here. One thing with everything that's going on this semester, particularly last week, that I didn't get a chance to do that I want to do in the future is to add like Aaron Beck and maybe Ellis as characters. I didn't get a chance to do that, but that's okay because the characters I was able to add are actually really, really good for the game. So this is posted on Blackboard in that same section. Use this as a reference to get in touch with whoever you need to get in touch with. And certainly you're not stuck with just class time. So if you want to like email these people outside of class to collaborate, you can do that too. The other thing I have here that will probably be helpful is the committees. And again, this is posted on Blackboard. So these are who's on what committees. And again, the game book will go into this in more detail. But essentially the research committee, people will submit research proposals to you and you give them feedback on it. The nomenclature committee will be talking about, you know, the diagnosis of homosexuality and maybe other issues that are raised. And then the program committee will work with me to put together that agenda. And again, like I said, most people have done it as a Google Doc, and that's worked pretty well because then we can all reference it. Alrighty, so any questions before I start kind of walking through the game itself?
For the research committee, whenever we're responding to other people's papers that they've submitted to us, we're trying our best to do it from our character's perspective, right?
Exactly. Yep. So starting Monday, you should all like sort of be in character mindset when we're in class and doing this. So, yep, exactly. So yeah, and that's something else that, like, again, with this class, I don't anticipate being an issue, but that just sort of like know going forward is, we're not going to judge anybody by what they do. We know you're all playing characters, right? People will have to say things that they certainly don't agree with, right? Or say things they don't know that much about, and that's okay too, right? So that's a big piece of this. All right, so if you've had a chance to skim this, what you'll see is there is a little bit of historical license taken here. So what they did is they combined the American Psychiatric Association and the American Psychological Association. Those would typically be two distinct conferences, but just for the purpose of the game, it makes it more fun to have the MDs and the PhDs together. And the little APA, they probably hate that we call them that, but the American Psychiatric Association are the ones still who put out the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the DSM. So they certainly still exist and are certainly kind of wield some power because of that. And so, everything, we are just the APA, this like overarching fake APA. And so we're going to put on annual conferences where we meet. And so in theory, this game is supposed to be super extended and we play it almost the whole semester. I feel like, I got to actually cover the theories of personality. So then what we do is we condense. And like I said, in the past, we've just made everything 1 year, but I think we can probably do at least 2 years this time around. And we can kind of figure out, which years we want to do it. So as it's talking about here, as we've learned about, right, most people would have been trained as psychoanalysts. A lot of them had been, trained by people like Horney or Adler, right? But a lot of the psychologists were starting to bring in the idea of behavioral therapy, right? Or just the theories of behaviorism, of learning. And so each camp was basically like, you're not right, this is how we should study. And then it really did sort of go around this idea of like, is homosexuality a diagnosis, so a disorder? And so then here you're putting yourself in the shoes of these people. Now, not all of you will be a psychoanalyst or a cognitivist or behaviorist. Some of you don't really have an affiliation to those. You're more there because you care about, issues for women, issues of homosexuality, things along those lines. So women were members, and women had been presidents. So you can see Mary Whitman Calkins was the first woman elected president in 1905. That's really different than a lot of other places. And so here's just like some historical background. Here's where the American Psychological Association made some statements about, things like abortion. So this shows that there was a precedent of taking a stance on what seemed like political issues. And so, again, just giving you more background. Here is where we really get into our game. So, and these are actual conferences that happen. So, your cab pulls up at the Shoreham Hotel in Rockaway Park, a particularly tranquil part of DC. You nervously check the entrance to the hotel. It's clear. This year, there are no throngs of protesters bent on face-to-face confrontation. So what had happened, as they show here in San Francisco, the previous year, is that the entrance was completely blocked by an angry crowd of gay rights activists. So they essentially were saying, like, hey, it's not right that you're pathologizing us, basically. And so there's like a little snippet from how the Washington Post actually covered this. It was a circus last year. Frank Kennedy grabbed the microphone and shouted, "Psychiatry is the enemy incarnate. Psychiatry has waged a relentless war of extermination against us." And then it talks about Irving Beaver. Everyone always has fun with Beaver's name. He doesn't sing baby, sorry. And so he was talking about his book, and a protester interrupted him and said, "I've read your book, Dr. Bieber, and if that book talked about Black people the way it talks about homosexuals, you'd be drawn and quartered and you deserve it." And then Bieber said, "I never said homosexuals were sick. What I said is they had displaced sexual adjustment. And as you can see, language is not whitewashed here." So the idea that, you know, like, these things have consequences. So there is perhaps the shadow organization that some of your characters may belong to, called the Gay PA. And they are starting to be more open about the fact that they exist. And so there is a symposium entitled "Psychiatry, Friend or Foe to Homosexuals, a Dialogue." So Dr. Evelyn Hooker is part of that. And then there's also a Dr. H. Anonymous, who claims to be both a licensed psychiatrist and a homosexual. And so the idea was a mentally ill person can't practice psychiatry, and homosexuality is a mental illness. So this person is risking their medical license, which again is why they wouldn't go as themselves. But we know about 10% of the population is that. And so he's probably not the only one, right? People are calling data into question. Time magazine has articles here. Thomas Zaz just says that mental illness isn't even a thing, right? He says it's a myth. And he's going to speak. And the president is George Miller, who is a cognitivist. So, and again, our two main factions are behaviorists and psychoanalysts, and now you've got this cognitive guy leading it, right? So that's kind of poking holes in things. And so, are psychology and psychiatry scientific? Is there such a thing as mental illness? Can or should science be used to make the world a better place, right? And then our big question ends up being, you know, should homosexuality be a diagnosis? So it gives you a little bit of information. There is like, the author of this, I admire him, but he went into way too much detail about the history of psychology in general. Like, you got a lot of detail here, right? But you get to see, you know, some of the stuff about some of your characters are interspersed in here. So that can be really helpful. And then, you know, there's more here just about sort of, again, the history of psychology. Just move you all over so I can do one of these and get us forward here. There's a lot of good background that you should, you know, look into. Talked about various characters and various schools of thought that are going to come up here. There's some great references throughout this whole document that will help you. There's a whole section on the study of homosexuality. So again, that'll be really, really relevant to our big issue. But there will be some characters who don't care about homosexuality. They'll be like, why are we discussing this? I have, you know, I want to talk about my research, things along those lines. So you'd see like Stonewall is mentioned here, things along those lines. And then there's the talk about, you know, mental illness, is mental illness a thing? Who gets to decide? So you get some nice background here for that as well. So, again, a little background on Freud. You all obviously have an advantage because we've studied all this. Then you start to see things like they talk about the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, like what were the categories of mental illness historically. As you can see, they started out with not many to begin with, right? And now we have this expansive book. So even 22 things, the book is like this thick now. So it's definitely distinct. Okay, and so then you'll see some of the ways these things have been updated, things that are considered disorders. It talks about medication coming into play, right? And how that could sort of essentially undermine therapy as a way to help people.
We talked about that in our social work class about how medication was the big way to deinstitutionalize people that had mental illness so that everybody wasn't in the mental hospital.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. I mean, it was really freeing. It also like frees up people's time, right? You don't have to go to therapy 5 times a week. So a lot of people, I mean, to this day, still opt for medication, right? So yeah, definitely. So you do have like some historical documents interspersed. Like these are, I think, the actual rules for picketing and things like that. And so this talks about the ideas, the different categories of, again, there will be 3 factions, but there's also a whole bunch of independents, right? And sometimes the independents sway the game. So to not go as fast as that. So this talks about some of these big issues that are kind of come up, right? So homosexuality, the medical model, what is mental illness? How should we treat them? And should we even be involved? And these are questions like APA still asks in some ways, although now they've just been sort of like, no, we can help, so we're going to. So again, each 2 to 3 sessions, we're going to do 1 year of the conference. The idea would be to do 1971 to 1975. We'll just sort of play it by ear and see, how far we get. But again, taking into account, making sure everybody does what they need to do. So again, here's where you see it's a draft where it's like, need to flesh out. He's a very nice guy. So he shared this with me for free. But yes, so there's always a presidential address, and we always are going to have an election for the next year's conference as part of it as well. And so this gives a general idea. So there will be presidential address, proposals to be considered, symposia scheduled by the program committee. Same thing with presenting research. And honestly, when you go to conferences now, this is the majority of what happens, although there's typically also a presidential address. And then you're all members of the board of directors, basically. I don't make it smaller, but there will be sort of a business meeting. And then we vote on things. We vote on vice president. We vote on, if there are those things that we need to, any proposals as well. So again, we're going to be having to sort of do this in a creative way since we're on Zoom, but I think we'll make it work. And so it talks about sort of things you should think about, that like your reputation is really important. So think about that as in terms of your character, who is president, what will be your jobs. And again, it's just to introduce the various people. There are nice definitions here, and kind of tells you about different people and what their ideas and goals might be. Try to serve on committees. I care less about that than he does, the guy author. So, and it gives you sample language for a proposal if you're going to bring one, if your character's supposed to bring one. It gives you sample ideas for research grants. So it's totally cool for you to use notes or just read your speech. I don't expect anyone to memorize them. That's fine. And then there's some definitions here of who's a psychologist, who's a psychiatrist, things like that. So, you know, non-members, members can join. And there talks about all these different things. Yeah, here are their information about abstracts, which might be more helpful than mine. It talks about symposia. It talks about, you know, any special papers or things that might come up. The research grants. So basically this thing is like your Bible for this class. It's really your how-to. And then here are basic outlines. So again, we're going to try to do at least 71 and 72 if we can, you know, be concise and do all 5 years. I'm totally up for it. If not, what we can do is collapse them into 2 or 3 years. And again, we've done it all in one conference before, so it's certainly a possibility. We can make it work. So we talk about the committees, we talk about the roles that people have. And then, again, just more back up here. Here are the committees. And then, again, a basic agenda. Some of this gets redundant, honestly. And then here's the part I really wanted to get to. This is about the factions. So each one of these reacting games has these factions that argue with each other about various things. And then as I mentioned, there's a whole bunch of independents. So if you look at our list, right, you will see, like, you know, we have independents, cognitivists, independent, psychoanalysts, behaviorists, independent, right? So we have a nice mix of people who really care about these academic disciplines and people who are like, whatever, man, I'm here because of specific issues. So, and sometimes you might want to vote with people who aren't in your faction, and that's okay. Again, be true to your character. So that there's a nice overview of, you know, their context for psychoanalysis. And you all will know a lot about this from having learned about Freud. And then there's a nice overview of behaviorists. Again, we pretty recently went over cognitive social learning theory. So this will be fresh in your minds. Right? They give you nice references. They talk about the cognitivists. They basically, you know, talk about how they differ from the behaviorists. They see the mind brain as an information processing system. So you see some of the background there. And then here are all the information you will get about each other. So again, your own role sheets will have a lot more than this, right? But this is really nice to find out about other people in the game and to see what other people can see about you, right? So that you know. And again, not all these people are in the game, so you can, just because I think the full, if we did all the characters, it would be like 30 people, and we only have 22, I think, 23? 22. So, you know, you can reference people here, and your sheet might tell you specifically to seek out certain people. But it gives you a little bit of background about each person. And the people who have and/ors are both in the game in every case here. So I wanted to make sure that people have allies, because I did one year without that, and it's horrible for the people who don't have allies. So and then you can see here are the independents. And again, some of these people might sort of form their own mini factions that aren't official, you know. Some of these people might sort of support each other, band together. And again, we don't have people in here like Milgram, but we do have Spitzer. We do have Zaz, for example, Leona Tyler. We don't have Zimbardo. I've seen Zimbardo speak. It's okay that we don't have Zimbardo. And there's some stuff about ethics in here. Because if you're going to be looking at what research is ethical, is calling homosexuality ethical, right? We're going to look at that. And then down here, there are some nice supplemental resources. So some like OG texts here. And again, I'm not going to go through all these, but they can be really helpful as well. So again, that's an overview. That is the most I'm going to talk between now and the end of the semester. Typically, the next couple days will just be about getting you all into your factions and working with each other. And then I'll just be here for reference. And then on Friday, I'm going to try to meet with each of you individually to like help you strategize essentially. So we can either do that face-to-face or in the chat, a private chat, whatever. And then once the game starts going, I'm just going to be the game master. So I'm just going to be like passing notes and grading you all honestly as you go and helping to make sure things run smoothly. So you all really do most of the talking from here on out.
So is the objective of the game to mostly push our agenda or causes
exactly
on the APA board?
Yeah, and one thing I should say is there are some professors who grade on like how well your objective is met, and I certainly don't. I just grade on like, how well are you doing on your speeches? How well are you actually participating? Is it clear that your speech was well prepared? Is essentially what I graded on. But yeah, to be perfectly honest, and I think some of your roll sheets say this, there are people who are set up to fail because they have very few allies in the game, right? So there's no way I'm gonna, grade you based on whether or not you succeed. But yeah, each of you has your own goals, right? And sometimes they'll align with your allies and sometimes they'll be your own thing. And so it is sort of like, again, you're playing a character, you're being that person, and you get to be selfish. You get to try to do, what your character needs. And some of them, based on your character's personality and their history, will be very generous and supportive of others. And sometimes you'll just only want to talk about your thing. And, that's okay. I mean, there will be people who like literally are like, I don't understand why we're talking about all these other things when like my issue is the most important, right? And to that person, that's true. And again, this is really true to form of actual conferences. Like when you go to actual conferences, there are panels about whole bunches of different issues. They're not all about one issue. So yeah. Other questions?
I'm sorry, what did you say was the objective of the game again?
Yeah, whatever your character's objectives are.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
You're trying to do what your character wants to do, basically. And I mean, obviously the real objective is for you all to have fun applying what you've learned all semester in a different way. But yeah, so each of you has your own objectives and you're trying to, but again, like some people are set up to fail. I'm pretty sure there's at least one character sheet that just says that. Like, you're set up to fail. Just do the best you can. But it's also possible you could persuade people, right? You could end up with a result happening that's totally different than what happened in real life. So the Darwin game I played, we were supposed to like award Darwin this Medal of Science that happened in real life, and we voted for like some random guy, right? Just because like the independents kind of rose up and we're like, no, we're going this other dude. So yeah, I mean, we can have stuff that's not true to life, and that's fine. That's part of the fun of it, is we're kind of getting to like rewrite history. Other questions? So again, you'll have time in class Wednesday to meet with your factions. Between now and then, I would say start Googling your person. Honestly, just like Wikipedia can be the best place to start. Start looking for, are there publications by that person that are readily accessible or that I can get through the library? Did someone write a biography about this person? Are there YouTube videos about this person? You just want to learn as much as you can about your person so that you have some nice background to bring to it, right? So the more you know about your person, the better you'll understand them and the easier it is to do the speeches or to talk with them. Alrighty, well, if no one else has any questions, y'all can leave a little early and maybe start searching your characters now. And then I'll stick around for a couple of minutes in case people have any individual questions. And then on Wednesday, come ready to talk to your factions. So again, that might be cognitive, analytic, behavioral, or you might ask me to make another, breakout room for the gay PA or something like that, and we can come in and out of groups throughout that as well. And that's one of the reasons I built in that sort of how's it going day next Friday is like, if people want to meet with their factions again, we can do that. All right, everyone have a good couple days, and I'll see you on Wednesday to start our planning in more detail.
Thank you.
Bye.
So how is the setting up for the meetings Friday gonna work? Because I need to get mine out the way in the beginning because I have to go get my cast cut off.
Yep. Just email me that and remind me Friday, and I'll just have you go first.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So